But for somebody, Lee, who's maybe doesn't know what networking is,
Networking in a nutshell is business relationships. I was working in car sales for just over 10 years. And then I was in the travel industry for 8.5 years. The whole world was changed around in 2016 when I came out of redundancy through the company at the time. At that point, I was the head of the UK for a holiday company. And I thought, what do I do going forward? And networking played a part in that in the early part of 2017. Having conversations like we spoke about earlier, and doing that regularly and consistently. What happened after that first networking meeting, though, was quite interesting because that one person went, "Could you sit and have a chat with me quite regularly?" And we worked it from there. So that was the start of my networking journey because that person became a one-on-one client of mine. What is the brand of you? Understand the brand of you because that's who the person is really dealing with. If you do that correctly in networking, I'll guarantee you one thing from me right now: business opportunities, business leads, sales, business growth will happen.
welcome to this week's show. And I'm joined today with Lee Foster, who is the networking man in Scotland. If you're looking for someone that's going to help you with networking, go see Lee. And he's here today to give us an inside look at how you can grow your business, your coaching business with networking. So if you've been at that stage and you're being like, where am I going with this? Why am I not getting the sales? Why am I not getting the leads? And you're looking for something else where you could put really good use of your time, networking is definitely one of the things that you should pay attention to. So I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to pass you over to Lee. How are you doing, Lee?
I'm very well. Thanks very much, Jay, for the invite to come along this afternoon.
Thank you so much for coming. It's so good to see you. So why don't you give us a little bit of, where did you get started, Lee? Tell us a bit about your story from way back in the day that brought you to here.
So many years. So many years.
Not that many, not way.
So I've come from a sales and a business development background. And over the past sort of 30 years or so, my sort of journey began in retail. I worked in the hospitality industry as well back in the day. And then within the sales and business development, I was working in car sales for just over 10 years. And then I was in the travel industry for 8.5 years. The travel industry really was when the penny dropped in regards of like creating great business relationships up and working with sort of real connections, real business owners to help them with their travel needs.
Okay.
Really for them to promote and sell our tours on our behalf, in other words. And that was right up until 2016. And then the whole world was changed around in 2016 when I came out of redundancy through the company at the time. At that point, I was the head of the UK for a holiday company. And I thought, what do I do going forward? And networking played a part in that in the early part of 2017. Which is where you see me today, sort of 7+ years onwards from that point, which I can't believe where that time's gone.
It's just flies in.
Just flies in. Absolutely flies in. So in 2017, I was working within the whiskey industry and I was a whiskey ambassador. And I sat and had a cup of coffee and thought to myself, how do I get the brand of me out there to educate the audience about what I do and how the whiskey ambassadors can help retail, hospitality, hotels, bars, restaurants about educating their staff, their teams about the sort of the way of whiskey around Scotland and malt whiskies, this, that, and the other. So it was really how they could actually upsell that to the audience that's coming into their bars or restaurants or hotels, and also do whiskey tastings and things like that.
Nice for you as well.
Nice way touching it. So I thought to myself, okay, how do I get myself out there? And I thought, right, what's this networking all about? I've heard about it over the many, many years I've been in sales and development. And I thought, okay, I need to find a networking event in Glasgow or somewhere in the local vicinity that I can go along to and experience it and see how it worked for me.
I think networking is one of them buzzwords a wee bit, especially when you've been in the space of marketing and stuff. You hear about networking, but for somebody, Lee, who's maybe doesn't know what networking is, just give us a little bit of a quick one-liner of what networking is.
Networking in a nutshell is business relationships. Networking is actually educating the audience about what you do and how you do it and how you can help each other. People always ask me, it's like, is it sales? Is it lead generation? That plays a part in it. But the main thing is that you're really going out there to try and galvanize long-lasting business relationships up. If you do that correctly in networking, I'll guarantee you one thing from me right now: business opportunities, business leads, sales, business growth will happen with time, because you've got to invest a lot of time into it.
Yeah.
But it all comes down to meeting people, having conversations like we spoke about earlier,
Yeah.
and doing that regularly and consistently. And that's a word that needs to get used to a
One
lot.
of these things that people don't like to hear when you say consistency, because they know that they should be doing it consistently, but we don't like to commit. I don't know. Consistency is just one of these things that it's the answer to a lot of marketing problems. It's the answer to a lot of sales problems. It's the answer to a lot of business problems. And again, it's the answer to this problem. If you're having not getting the results from networking, it's the answer there as well.
And that's a key note that you just mentioned there as well. People say to me quite regularly is that I'm not getting the results that I want from networking.
Yeah.
And I always ask her, how consistent are you being with the groups and the networks you're part of right now? Here and there, okay, we're not being that consistent with them. So how can your audience help you? How can the community, the people around you help what you're looking for if they don't know you that well and they can't promote you or introduce you with confidence to one of their connections in their business network?
Exactly, 100%. So when you were just going on there, tell us a bit more about your story. I think when you and a button and says, "Let's tell us about one network on this." So let's go back again, just to let you finish that off.
I've been great going out about meeting people, having conversations, building good relationships up within the travel industry and the car industry with individuals and this, that, and the other. But one of the big things of going out there is actually walking into a room of people that you don't know
Yeah,
and you've got to start from scratch with. And that's what networking is all about. At the beginning, with anybody who's in that stage, is probably thinking, I'm not confident enough to walk in to speak to somebody directly or pass a card or write some notes down or have a cup of coffee and have a one-to-one conversation with somebody. So at that point, I decided to go and network at a networking meeting in Glasgow on the Clyde River, a place called the Village Hotel at the time.
yeah,
And I walks in with a notebook in hand. I've got my new business cards, got my pens and my pencils ready and my booklet and that as well. And I'd set myself a goal of thinking, right, and that's another thing that people don't do, is actually walking into the room and thinking about who do I need to speak to start with. I just want to pick out maybe 2 or 3 people and have conversations on why they're there for,
yeah,
and to learn more about what they do for a living or where they came from, and vice versa for me to learn more from them.
yeah,
But my first ever experience with networking was people judging the book by the cover before even speaking to you. And 3 people on that day looked at my title and my role and says, I can't do anything for you, Lee.
yeah,
They didn't look at the chapters of the book of where I've came from and the background that I've got and the people that I knew in the local area. They were just looking at, they couldn't offer me anything for the business that I was in at the time.
yeah,
It's like, wow. But I then started asking probing questions and started getting to know them by the third person I met. And I set them a challenge. And then I got known as somebody that remembered who I was at the next networking event I went to. That person, that third person I spoke to on that day went, oh, Lee. And we had another conversation. And then they introduced me to another person. And I said to them, that's the art of networking.
yeah,
You took the time to learn what I'm looking for. You've introduced me to somebody who you feel is a good fit for me to start chatting to.
yeah,
What happened after that first networking meeting, though, was quite interesting, because that one person went, could you sit, have a chat with me quite regularly, and we work it from there. So that was the start of my networking journey, because that person became a one-on-one client of mine.
yeah.
And that started me on a journey of networking coaching or networking training or networking accountability, and strategy really came into that.
So if you were to say to somebody, an online coach that is more focused on probably online marketing methods, how could networking? What would be the value proposition for them for networking?
The value proposition for them is, number one, is getting their brand exposed. And what I mean by that is their own brand. It's them personally. It's giving them visibility, which is really important. And that word we used before is consistency. Being consistent with their visibility, being consistent with their brand that is them, instead of the company or the individual or the corporation or the business that they're running. It's them as an individual. And then educating the audience. What that in turn would really help them with is really informative, educating their audience that they'll go out and start talking about them on their behalf.
Yeah,
The art of networking is without you being in the room.
yeah,
and it's the other person talking about you in a good light because you've educated them in the right way.
Yeah.
And I think the real benefit to them, with especially with an online platform, we've got so much to choose from online now.
Oh, hundreds. I think that's overwhelming on its own.
Stacks.
Yeah.
But you've got to go out and try them, and then you'll pick out which is the best investment of time, but also money. And I mean this respectively as well, is that many people go, I'm not investing into that. Time or money? Well, time and maybe money. Why not money? If you invest in money into it, there's a great value proposition behind it. If there's a price tag on going along to a meeting, there must be a wealth of knowledge and value that's going to be in there because of that price point.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be on the tin if there wasn't anything in there. So there's that investment of time and really getting to know your audience really well, but for them to get to know you really well. And like I said earlier, it takes time to develop that.
Yeah.
With the online offer we've got now, since working on an online hybrid offering that we're working on, you got in person, of course, that'll always be in place. But the online side of it gives you so much more exposure with less traveling.
Yeah.
And it dedicates more time and using time more effectively.
You can reach a wider audience.
Well, that's what happened when things happened many years ago. We're not going to mention that word that's in this room, right? But it opened up the boundaries of across the pond in the United States to Canada, to Europe, to not even traveling over to Ireland or even just across the country, to make it easy. Instead of traveling in the car for like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 5, etc., you can literally click a button, boom, and you're there in front of somebody in the middle of Spain.
Yeah.
Or you're there in front of somebody from Florida or the East Coast of the United States or in Canada or Ontario or something like that.
Yeah. And back in JV, you used to sit in the car for 5 hours driving down south or driving or getting boats or whatever.
Well, in the early days for me, when I came out of that first networking event and created my own networking meeting, tea, coffee, and conversation in Ayrshire, 21 people in the room, one guest speaker. People traveled from all over the place to get to where it was in Ayrshire.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to meet face to face. And then that sort of grew and expanded after that, and then grew into the online not the online didn't start till about sort of latter part of after 2022 nearly, really.
Yeah.
When you think about it. And the power of Zoom really coming into play then from an online marketplace.
I think a lot of things changed.
Yeah.
Well, that's massively over that certain couple of years. We won't mention. We don't want the views to go down this video.
No, not at all. I believe it benefited many businesses.
Yeah.
More than hindered. It actually benefited in a positive impact of an online format that really came to fruition.
Yeah.
And there are loads of different technologies to use. And a lot of people are still using these technologies now for a massive impact, positive impact to their business right now, or to their roles, because even as a business development manager or a person that's part of a team, gives them more exposure to get out and speak to the right people.
Yeah.
Regularly and consistently that's in there. But yeah, with working online and looking at it from that side of it, networking has had a major impact to what I've done over the many years. And it's also how I embrace that with the people that's around me, because that's where it began from. It's that positive impact that I've had to people around me that are not just looking for the sale, not just looking for the opportunity. They want an advisory board around them. They want a pocket full of resources and support and structure that if they have a question in their business, they can ask it and they get an answer to it. Advice.
So for somebody, Lee, who's never networked in their life before, and would you suggest that they try and find a group, maybe whether that be online, offline, whatever, but do you think that they should try and find a group that is niche to their industry? Or do you think it's better to go for the wider net, like with the wider niche there?
That's a really good question. I believe it should be a wider net, you want to call it. A wider opportunity to speak to multiple people in multiple areas of industries and backgrounds. Because some people have been with the company for so many years, but there's so many people out there have got this real rich tapestry of many industries and sectors that they've been in. So there's a wealth of knowledge that's out there. I'm a big believer it should be like an open category network, which is what mine is.
Yeah.
But it should open it up for that conversation to develop even further.
Yeah.
You can still go to your niches. There's a place for many niches that are in there of certain industries to be together. Totally. That becomes best practice and sharing best knowledge, etc.
Yeah.
But the likes of, if you're just stepping out, go out and experience them. Pick up maybe 2 or 3 in the month and go and experience these online formats or this in person.
Yeah.
If you're feeling a bit lacking confidence and you don't want to walk into a room full of people, which a lot of people do feel a bit ooh, like that with it, do the online. You know, it's easy to click a button, show your camera. You don't have to speak all the time. You're not engaged in the room. And then you can make it a bit easier for yourself if you're just lacking. That starts to build your confidence.
I think confidence is a big thing. I know that the first time I had ever walked into a networking event, and I think it was not long before I went to yours actually, Elliott, and I was like, right, I want to speak to these people, but I have no idea what to say, or like, I don't want to come across as I'm salesy. I want to come across as this. I don't want to come across as that. And to be fair, I got background in PR as well. So I was used to pitching journalists. I was used to being in their sort of networking crowds. But when it came to me trying to get business for myself, I was like, I can't be salesy, can't be sat at the back, need to, people will come and talk to me. Could not get my head around it, Lee. So for somebody who's in that position where they are just want to make a, and that is the thing, when I look back now, it's crazy because you just have a normal conversation and treat everybody like you would treat a normal person. But is there any advice that you could give them that one?
One bit of advice that I learned the early days really quickly, and it's having taken the time before you go into these networking events, either online or in person, and set up the stall or strategy that you want to achieve from them.
Yep.
Don't just wing it. I get many people say wing it.
Right.
They just want to go in there and wing it or what they're trying to say to the audience. Have a little bit of structure and a strategy of why you're going there for in the first place.
Yeah.
But also is actually understanding what you're looking to ask and what you're looking to achieve from it. You know, when you're speaking to somebody, have an open discussion, find out about each other first. It's not about being salesy straight off the bat.
Yeah.
It's about just really trying to find out why they're there for, how many times they've been coming along to it, what have they gained from being here. Tell us a bit about your business journey, like what we're doing now, really, in a conversation.
Yeah.
And then the next time you go back, you'll touch base and there'll be like a bit of a bridge that's built there for them. And then you start to galvanize and build upon that opportunity, that bridge with them and get to know them really well.
Yeah.
And I think that's really key behind it.
It's totally about breaking the ice.
Break
That first time's breaking the ice. Once you've been a few times, you do start to recognize faces.
Yeah.
You do. And now, as much as I love all the online stuff and all that stuff's great, I do make time in my diary for networking events.
Yep.
Because I feel like it's, if anything, it's something that I enjoy because it's just a chance to chill with other people that are doing the same flights. It's their chance to you to learn something new. Like today, Lee, for example, you're coming here. Yes, this is an interview. Still a sort of a networking signs, and we're still building that relationship. And you coming here today, I've learned from you. You've learned from me, and it's just a great opportunity. I feel like you should always be making relationships.
And that is the key part. You mentioned something there as well, is that setting up the stall.
Yeah.
And it's planning in your networking.
Yeah.
Because the amount of people I ask at the minute that talks about, I always ask a question when I'm talking either to an audience or I'm doing a talk online, not just about my own activities, but at other networks or other conferences or sales, etc. And I chat and I say, who's got a business plan? We spoke about this earlier. Who's got a business plan in the room? Hands go up. Brilliant. Who's got a marketing plan in the room? Hands go up. Brilliant. For their business? Yeah. Who's got a networking plan for the month ahead? The hands go down.
Yeah.
Some people might not know what that is, but it's part of your marketing plan. And it's actually thinking, okay, I'm going to be going to that networking meeting, that networking event. I've got this one going on. I've got this one-to-one happening over the next 4 weeks. It's setting up the stall for success. Yeah. And some of these one-to-one meetings that you have may be in an interview scenario, but they also are part of having that conversation with somebody, learning from each other again. We had a great conversation before doing this.
Yeah.
Of actually learning from each other. And I learned a lot from yourself of actually what you do even further. And you learned a bit more about me, where I'm coming from, what my goals and aspirations are going to be for the next sort of few months, especially for this year as well. But it's setting up that plan of action.
Yeah, 100%.
That many business owners, key decision makers, people in roles, and I'm on my soapbox for this, don't take the time to do.
One of the things that we mentioned before we started the hit record, I just had a lot of stuff we should have hit record earlier. But yeah, one of the things that we did mention is, and I have seen this with other online businesses as well, where when you are networking and people are like, oh, but then they're a coach. They coach the exact same thing as me. Then they're my competition. And like, there is enough to go around.
Of course there is.
There is enough to, there's seven like that. I don't even know how many people are in the world, but there's a lot. There is a lot of people to go around. I think collaboration is more important at this point than competition.
Again, that's another thing I speak about quite a lot. And I hear this from many people when I'm chatting away to them. You know, if I'm doing a chat with them online or doing a discovery call, and I actually see the networking events, I go, oh, the stand-up events, I do what they do.
Yeah.
And you go, well, you might do, but there's some great areas about what you both do that you can actually collaborate on.
Yeah.
As such. And you hear so many people, would that person be there with that industry? Yeah, oh no, I'm not bother going along to that one now.
Yeah.
Why? Well, they're from the same industry as me. I said, well, there's business for everybody to go along to with reason.
Yeah.
But one of the big things you find from people working in collaboration and strategic partnerships, another great word to use, strategic partnerships, is that they learn from each other of some of the challenges that the other person's going through.
Yeah.
And networking plays a part in that. You know, either if you're meeting in person for a cup of coffee and have a chat, what's your month been like, G?
Yeah.
You know, you have that chat, well, I've had this and that going on. But how did you get over that objective that came up over the last 4 weeks? Oh, well, I did this and that. Oh, well, actually, I'm going through this similar thing myself at the minute. So you can have this real open chat.
Yeah.
I see other networks, like in property especially, who talk like that from property groups.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't see that in many others.
No.
It's always like, oh, you do what I do. And it's like,
I think one of the other things that you also mentioned earlier on is about personal branding.
yes.
They might be in the same industry as you, but they've not got the same story as you. And I know that if there was two of Lee sitting here, I would gel to one more than the other. And it's the exact same. But if you say, I'm not going there because my competition's there, then you're basically saying, well, that person doesn't deserve to see me. And you could be doing that person a disservice by not being there and helping them just because your ego's got in the way.
Here's a little a quote that I created many years ago when it came from my travel industry background. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when you say that, you know, I do a segment and I talk about, what is the brand of you? Understand the brand of you, because that's who the person's really dealing with. And the question is, are you the brand of your business, or is the business the brand of you? And think about that for a second or two, is that when you go to a networking room or a networking event or online, etc., are you promoting yourself as the individual, or are you promoting just the business? Because this is for people that are working for themselves or as an individual in a role, in a team, in a corporation, etc. Many people go, well, I'm actually chatting to Jay. Yeah, Jay's chatting to Lee. So you're actually understanding the brand that is me, because your reputation is the biggest asset you got in your business or your role.
Yeah.
Your reputation, as you've heard this phrase, can be built over a lifetime, but take a second to completely disappear altogether.
Yeah.
So when you're in business in the early days, people say, I say this to myself, really look after your reputation, because when you're walking into any room in any type of facility and you're speaking to somebody, it's you who they're dealing with.
Yeah.
You could be selling anything you want. You could be showcasing any product or service or collaboration or partnership or anything, but they're only going to take that item, that service, that piece, if they get to know you properly.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people forget about it quite regularly.
Building a business that is the business of you, that is based on you, that is your personal brand, is with you till the day you die. You go through seasons, you might change, you might do things, you still got that brand, you still got the audience you built with that brand, you still got all the connections you built with that brand, because it's you. It's the best asset that you can build is branding yourself.
Yep.
And I think when you go into networking events and when you go to different meetings and you've got that brand, that they're like, oh, there's Jay, oh, there's Lee, or there's what, and they recognize you. You don't even have to go speak to people at that point, because people want to come speak to you. And that's where you should be aiming for that. But people do start to get to know you and stuff like that.
And that takes time with building relationships up. And it's when you take the opportunity to build those relationships up past 6 months.
Yeah.
Now, I see many people jumping in and jumping out of networking groups and organizations and various different things that they're part of, which is fine. You can do that. But if you've been involved in it for 6 months, 12 months, you've really built a real great community around you of people.
Yeah.
And then you step out for someone and disappear for 6 months. Then you drop back into it and I haven't seen you for 6 months again. It's that we were here, now you disappeared, then you come back again. That's a reputation.
That's 100%, yeah.
You know, if you step out of a role or jobs change all the time, but you might still keep that close-knit group around you that people still know who you are and what you do, you're still keeping in touch with them. It's like LinkedIn or social media.
Yeah.
You're always using it every day, some way, shape, or form. That always keeps your brand as you, as the individual, quite high up in visibility.
Yeah.
But that brand and that message has to be on point of who you are and what you do. So you've got to keep that brand messaging going as well.
When it comes to social media, when it comes to YouTube, Google, whatever brand, whatever platform you're trying to grow on,
Yeah.
I always say to people, if you can't stick with this for a year, don't even bother. Like, because you need to stay consistent and you don't worry about followers, vanity metrics and all that stuff. Just worry that you are putting something consistent out and showing up for yourself, and showing up for your audience to make sure that they are seeing who you are. It doesn't always have to be business, but make sure you're putting something up there that shows that you're alive.
Yep.
And I know that people tend to pivot just before it's about to work for them.
Try to change the wheel.
So they get to this stage, they be consistent for like 12 weeks and then they're like, no, I've had enough now. We need to do something different. Their brain gets in the way. They've got a lot of fears about things aren't working, things aren't delivering and whatever, and then they pivot. But the thing is, the 12 weeks of the relationships, one of them people have now seen you more than 7 times and they could be ready to buy from you and then you disappear.
Yeah. Yep.
A year, believe it or not, is not that long a time. It flies in, especially if you're getting older. At 100, wholeheartedly, I agree with you there, Lee. Consistency is everything.
Yeah. And it's that being part of that group and that organization. It's like, if you disappear, why should anybody give you business?
No.
If they don't see you regularly and consistently. You know, if it takes a lot of time for someone to say, listen, I'm going to introduce you to X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And when they give you that introduction, it might not be for monetary value. It might not just be for their business. It might just be thinking, this is a good asset for you to talk to.
Yeah.
And you don't follow up with that. That is sort of like saying, well, I'm not that bothered about that reputation that you've built with it.
Yeah.
You know, if you do follow up with it, you get looked on a lot better light. And then people will send more opportunities through your way because you've followed up and followed through with them.
Yeah.
As well. But you've took the time to nurture and to build and foster great relationships in that room.
Yeah.
That works really well. In that group, in that organization. And you've invested the time right to make it work for you. Because a lot of people say to me as well is, we said it earlier, networking doesn't work for me.
I've heard that before.
Networking doesn't work for me. It's just, I've tried it, wore the t-shirt, doesn't work for me. That's fine. And it always comes down to that visibility, consistency that's in the room itself, and educating your audience regularly. Because another thing we mentioned before was, is your messaging on point? We talked about social media there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been involved in LinkedIn as a platform for me since 2008.
Yeah.
And every single day, I've always done something on LinkedIn. And it's just about being visible for the right reasons and delivering that right message that's in there.
When somebody's just coming into, whether it be networking, whether it be social media, whether it be anything, we were talking about this earlier on, Lee, where you get that sort of a 12-week itch where you're like, oh, I'm not seeing anything, there's nothing happening, I don't know, is it worth my time, is it not worth my time? And I think when it comes to networking, especially when you're having these one-to-one relationships with people, build this connection before you need it. Build your connections before you need them, because it's really delayed. They'll serve you your weight in gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for somebody who's in that position, Lee, who doesn't have the proof yet in their head that it's going to work out, what would you say is the best advice for them?
If you're just starting off, what you need to do is you need to get out there and start meeting people.
Yeah.
But to go out there and meet people, you've got lots of social media groups that you can go into.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of, and I don't mind saying this, a lot of free online opportunities to go along to as well.
Yeah.
And you've also got some free in-person events to go along to. Please go along to them. Some of these free ones are usually just like an hour. coffee conversation or just online of an introductory rounds, etc. But open up the conversations. One of the big things as well, if you go into these group sites on Facebook and various things, some might have 80, some might have 1,000, some might have thousands more in there.
Yeah.
But the way to make them work isn't just to post offers and information about your business. That's part and parcel of it. But going to the attendee lists, pick out 3 or 4 people and having some open conversations with them, actually inviting them to a one-to-one meeting. There's no harm in doing that. Reaching out to Jays in a group. Listen, do you fancy having a virtual cup of coffee or a virtual catch up? Just a one-to-one. Here's my link.
Yeah.
We'll go on Zoom.
Start a podcast and get people on your podcast.
Yes, exactly.
That is the number. And I don't know anybody, Lee, that would say, no, I'm not coming.
No.
Because you might be a small podcast when you first start, but that grows.
Yeah.
Like you grow, it's inevitable. You stay consistent with networking, podcasting, you will grow an audience.
It's like we said earlier, it's building that sort of confidence in using individual confidence in the other person. It's having those conversations. It's good to talk. We hear that phrase it's quite used a lot. It's good to have a chat, a conversation. But it doesn't really cost anything in regards, except just for an investment of time. To have that time. It could be half an hour, it could be 45 minutes, could meet them for a cup of coffee. You could have a podcast that you set up around your niche of industry if you wanted to. The other side of the coin, once you got past that point, is then going and looking at not just the investment of time, but thinking, what is my investment of money?
Yeah.
My business investment of investing a bit of value that's into that networking group. When you get to the stage where you're paying money for a networking group, there's a reason behind that for.
Yeah.
And usually the reason is the organizer, the owner, or somebody pulled stuff together. There's a real plethora, smorgasbord of activities that are in that monthly activity every month for their members. And that's why there's a value proposition behind it for. That's why you pay X amount of pounds and pence to go along to it, because there's more access into it that you really want to get out of it as well.
Yeah.
And that's either in person or online, etc. as well.
I think with the online ones I've seen, especially the ones that do charge you for access and stuff, you're usually getting into a group where there's a lot of like experts that have been around, that have got the authority and have got the reputation that we were talking about. So you're getting in front of a new audience, you're also getting in front of people that are at the top of their game, and you're getting one-to-one access with these people.
Well, there's people in there who are just starting off on their networking journey, just starting off in their business journey. Some people are well established in their business. Some people may be managing directors. They've got sales teams and people around them. This is opportunities in there. One thing I didn't touch on there before, though, and a thing to really think about is work the room.
Yeah.
That's what I mean before by organizing these one-to-one conversations and having these conversations with individuals regularly and consistently. Is work the room. So if you've got a group of, say, 80 people, start from number 1 and work your way around them all. Don't just stop at 80, go back around again. Something I talk about quite regularly when I'm doing chats with everybody is work the room, not just in the room, work the actual group and organization. Because your main goal right now, if you're just starting off, is to educate every single person about what you do, but also to educate yourself about what they do.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a vice versa, where you can actually then try sort of conversational, as you can then start passing business to one another as well, which I think is extremely important.
Yeah.
That'll come with time.
As much as networking is a great opportunity to get business and stuff like that, I think it's going in with it with that approach where you're going in to get something is you're probably not going to get what you're looking for. If you go in with that approach of, I'm just going in to make some new relationships, going in there to have a coffee, going in there to have a friend, meet new friends, I think you'll get a lot more out of it. And I think that's when people do start it. Oh, I remember them, they were the person that done X, Y, Z. Let's pass them. I know somebody who could help them, or they know somebody that could help me. And I think that's definitely the way that you should be approaching networking. Any kind of networking.
Yeah, good.
Any kind of networking. Hey, really, it has been a great catch up to have with you. And thank you so much for your time. Just before we go, why don't you let people know where they can come and find you if they want to come and see more about what Lee's up to?
Yeah, sure. No problem. Thanks very much, too. So if you want to find out more about yourself, you want to find out more about the Revitalize Business Club, you can always go to the Revitalize website, and that's revitalize-connect.com. That's my webpage. If you land on that, give you all the information about what the Revitalize Business Club's all about, but also find a bit more about me and the background that I've got as well. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I would always encourage you to connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me a connection request through. We can connect. We can start the conversation virtually on there as well, which I think is extremely important.
He does respond to his DMs.
I do. I do indeed. I actually phone people up directly. You send me DMs and they've got their mobile number on their profile, which I always check. And if I've got a mobile number, you will get a phone call from me. So I always phone people up afterwards. Yeah.
Brilliant, Lee. Thank you so much. You have been amazing for showing up as well. It's not just us. Like, you have took the time to show up for yourselves and get the knowledge that we've gave you today that you can take and use in your business. Whether that be this week, next week, get it in diary. When are you going to go to something? Well, go tonight and go into a Facebook group and just talk to one person. One person. Then you can go and talk to two people the next time and build it up. But I just want to say, I'm super proud of you for showing up for yourself today. And I'll look forward to seeing you next week in next week's video. Have an awesome week.